Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. Today is going to be the first video I'm going to talk about Bricks Builder. I'm going to be comparing it with the Oxygen Builder and we're going to see how it compares to Oxygen Builder. There's been a lot of talks about the Bricks Builder and I've gotten a couple of requests to do videos on Bricks, and going forward I think I'm going to start doing some videos on Bricks Builder. Because I've had the chance to play with it a little bit. I've not actually used Bricks to build any projects. I tried my hands on it a couple of months back. It wasn't really working for me, but since then they have come along where there's been a lot of releases and a lot of updates, a lot of fixes. And today I think it's time for me to take a look at how Bricks compare with Oxygen. I want to say that right now, at the moment I'm doing this video, Bricks is currently in version 1.4 and it's just a few days left for the release of Bricks 1.5 beta. So I want to let you know that this comparison might get really outdated soon, okay? And because of that, there are a couple of things I'm going to leave out in anticipation that it's going to be included in Bricks Builder. As you can see, Bricks Builder 1.5 beta is going to be released in a couple of days, and they already have the documentation on their website. And according to the documentation, there are a lot of things here. There are a lot of things that are missing in 1.4 that is going to be added here, and one of them being the nestable element. I'm going to start with Oxygen. Now, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to go through the pros of each builder, and by talking about the pros of one builder, I'm actually talking about the cons of the other builder. So I'm going to start with Oxygen. Now, before I jump into the pros of each, I'm going to quickly build a section on a full width, full height section in each builder, just to write Oxygen in one and write Bricks in the other. So I'm just going to start with Oxygen. I'm going to add a section. So I'm going to add a background. I'm going to choose the Oxygen color, which is kind of like purple. I'm just gonna eyeball that, and yeah, something like that, not accurate. I'm gonna go into size and spacing. I'm gonna change the height to 100 VH, or rather it's best practice to use minimum height of 100 VH, and I'm gonna drop a heading there. I'm gonna change the color to white, and the font weight I want to make it that, and then I'm gonna double click there and write Oxygen, and I want to center this so that okay, so that is what I get there, you know. Now adding a section, I'm not able to center this to, you know, right here, and I'm not, there are there are a lot of workaround for that, but I'm not going to use the workaround. I'm just saying I want you to have a feel of what it is like. Okay, I'm going to jump into Bricks and do the same thing. So I want to add a section also. So I'm going to go here and that. Okay, so I get that section. Now, now you can see the difference. The section elements comes with an inner container that we can see. Actually, Oxygen comes with an inner container also, but we can't see it. So therefore, we cannot select it. And this is a one upper hand that Bricks has, you know, because in Oxygen you have to add another element to be able to center this. But let's see how this goes. I'm gonna add a heading, and yeah, as you can see, it gives me the opportunity to add more elements, but I kind of like the way Oxygen does it sometimes, because when I add that heading, I want to be able to start styling it. So but now I have to go to select that heading before I can style it, and I'm gonna give it so that gets in the way. Very poor inputs, and then give it a heading. I want to call that Oxygen. Sorry, Bricks, and I want to make this section of minimum height of 100 VH. As you can see, I can type in the VH and it applies. Can't do that in Oxygen, and I want to center this. Okay, that. So that can center, and yeah, it can center, except I select that one, which is the reason we have it. Okay, and then I'm centering that, and I'm gonna change the background to now. To be fair, I use Oxygen all the time. I don't use bricks all the time, so I'm much more familiar with the way things work in Oxygen more. So if I'm fumbling around, it could be as a result of not being very familiar. And so I have bricks and I have Oxygen here. So I'm going to start with Oxygen. I'm going to say one of the pros of Oxygen against bricks is the availability of style sheet. So in Oxygen, you could go and add a style sheet. So I'm going to just say my new style sheet. I don't think you can leave spaces. So I can say my style sheet, or let me just call it Oxygen. Okay, so I can create a style sheet now, and then I can write my CSS, and that style sheet is going to apply site-wide. So whichever page I am, I can still access that style sheet. I can, have multiple style sheets, and I can add them in categories. I can create folders. Let's say this folder is for home page. I don't know if I can leave bad name. Okay, I can leave a space, so I just say okay, let me just say styles. So everything that has to do with font styles would go into there. I'm not quite sure I can drag that. So what I can do is if I select that style sheet, I can go and choose the folder, and then it's gonna come in. So I can create different style sheets and different folders. That's one. Bricks don't have that. Another thing that Oxygen has that I like a lot is it has better element selection. You can select an element easily. So you see this in Oxygen. I can quickly select an element. So let me say I wrap this with a div, so it has a parent. What I can do is if I select the heading, let me give this a lot of let me give this maybe 50% width, and then a height of say 500 pixel. Now if I select the text here, you can see that it's very easy for me to know where the parent it is. Highlights the parent and I can see it. And then if I want to select the parent, I can select here. What if in cases where the parent you don't have enough height on the parent? Now if you select it, you have a little arrow up here that you can click and it automatically selects the parent. That's another way you can select things. And then you can also select from the breadcrumb here. So I can select the div, the parent here. I can decide to select the section. So it gives you much better ways to select element. But in bricks, I have this container, I have this. Now if I select this, of course I can select the container, but if it's in a situation where the container is not wide enough, let's say I wrap this with a container. Okay, I have two containers here, and then I select this container, and I want to select the parent from here. It's kind of really difficult to know, what you're supposed to. Is it here? Is it this? Is this the parent? Is this the parent? So yeah, that is the parent, but it's kind of difficult. So if you had multiple stuff going on there, so how do you know which one is which? How do I know which one is which? Is this parent? Is this, how do I know? But in Oxygen, it's kind of easy because you have that select parent arrow where you just select the next parent, and you also have the breadcrumb. But here there is no breadcrumb, so the selection is much better. The element selection is much better in Oxygen. Now the other pro of Oxygen is that the inputs are optimized for longer values like calculated values and variables. So if I go into size and spacing, and then you see they look like they are small. Now you can click into this. The first thing I notice is that I can click into this and I don't have anything getting in my way. Now in bricks, if you go into like this layout, now the first thing, anytime I come in here, especially here, I want to click in, and then these arrows, this stuffs get in my way. I really don't think these things are necessary. I do not think so, because they always get in the way. But then the point I'm trying to make here is if I want to do calculated value and I click none and I put my, see, it expands, so I can just write var secondary. What I'm trying to say is that you have that option, so it expands for you. So if I come here and click none, you see it expands. So it's much more optimized to take longer values like calculated values. On the other hand, bricks has an upper hand in a way, because here you can simply click and drag, and this is absolutely fantastic, and Oxygen doesn't have that. So since I was talking about the inputs, I just have to mention that this is where bricks has the upper hand. And we'll come to that. Another thing that Oxygen has that I like a lot is the availability of what is called the link wrapper. So now I can select a div and then I can convert that whole div into a link wrapper, and then I can add, you know, any link on that element. So any elements can be converted into a link. In Bricks, you are limited to, you know, certain elements. For instance, if I select a container, I don't have a way to link it, so I can't link that container to anything. But if I select, okay, now that's one thing I don't like about, because I mean, this stuff is good, but in a way, there's no way you can mistakenly, you know, duplicate an element in the Oxygen. There's just no way. It's not going to happen because of the way these things are placed, okay? And you have the extra option here, which I think feels a bit more convenient. But anyway, but if you mistakenly come like this, you're going to click something because it's just going to cover the whole thing. Anyway, so if you have the text, you can actually link the text to something. But other than that, you really can't link many other elements. Yeah, like a whole container, you can change it into a link. So that is one thing, the one upper hand that Oxygen has against Bricks. And then another thing is the use of classes in Oxygen is much more solid and stable. Now Bricks has introduced classes. You can also add classes in Bricks, but Oxygen's class system is much more advanced, much better. You have better class management. So if I add a class here and say Oxygen, now if I select something and come back there, you see it's still selected. I can go to my selectors and then I can find that, I can search for that class. I can select that class, and I can, by selecting that class, I can style that class visually, just selecting that class, even though I'm not selecting the elements. So I could go to here to the typography and change the color to, was that the class? Yeah. So should I change? That did not change, but that is supposed to change. Let's go to that and see. So did I add that class there? So okay, so that is because I already styled it. So they have this style indicator that shows that my style is being applied via the ID, so it's not going to override that. So I'm going to remove that. Let's go back again to those selectors, and of course you can search for it, which is really cool. So I can select this, and then I can change the font size. Okay, from the class. So then you have, so it gives you different ways of, you know, accessing that class. And yeah, so it works, and then you can target that class from the style sheet, from anywhere. Now in Bricks you have the class system, but it's still kind of buggy in a way. There are some, you know, there are cases where you cannot target that class. I can't remember exactly, but there have been reports in the group, in the Bricks Facebook community group, about issues with classes. The next big thing that Oxygen has advantage over Bricks is the availability of condition. Now let's start from the very simplest one. For right here, you can actually switch off what you want to see in the builder. This is based on a condition, so you can switch it off. And this is a very nice feature. If there are so many elements, maybe there's so many things you just want to temporarily switch off what you can see inside the builder, and this applies a condition which you can actually go here. So it shows the in editor behavior, and it shows always hide, so I can toggle this back on. Now you have display conditions. So you can add a couple of conditions based on different things. How do you want to, where do you want to display, and how do you, when do you want to display this? So it's gonna, you have a lot of conditions that you can build to render these elements, so based on the conditions you have chosen. Another thing that Oxygen has over Bricks is better typography styling controls. For instance, I can write Oxygen is cool, and then in Oxygen I can just decide to select the cool and then make it a span, and I can go ahead to apply a class of Oxygen cool to it, and then style that span separately. Now this is very powerful, so you could do so many wonderful things with that. and I can also style this, you know, separately. So you can see, you can visually, you know, select, create that span. But in bricks, if I say bricks is cool, I can't visually, you know, make that a span. Another thing is Oxygen has a beta code block. Now I consider Oxygen's code block to be much better than Bricks code block. So if I go here and add a code block, now you can see that this code block has, you have a place for a PHP. I mean, some people complain that it comes with you know, I know someone in the Bricks group that, you know, wrote a long article and then complained that it comes with the PHP, you know, here that you have to simply, you know, edit out, and that was a complaint. And I found it really funny because this is much better than Bricks code block. It has a space for PHP and HTML, it has a space for CSS, and it has separate spaces. But in Bricks, if we're going to add a code block now, so so look at this. So it still comes in to drop a lot of elements there, and then now if you want to create a JavaScript, you have to you know, wrap it with a script tag. If you want to create HTML, you have to wrap it with an HTML tag, you know, and perhaps you don't need to wrap HTML, you know, you could just write out your HTML. But if you want to write style, so it's, everything is just, you know, mixed up here, and I actually hate it. I don't like it at all. I don't like it at all. But here everything is much more organized. Oxygen has better implementation of pseudo element and state. Now if I select this, I can go to the state, and then I can have my different state. And of course I can so you have hover before, after, and the original. You can add your state, different additional state. Let's say you want to target the span, so you could say hover span, and then so it says when I hover and this, do something to the span, and then I'm gonna like kind of maybe increase the font size or reduce it. So you see, if I hover on there, it affects the span. So it has this sort of stuff where you can target the child element. Another thing that I find that Oxygen, you know, this might be a matter of opinion, but the way I see it is that Oxygen has easily reachable options. For instance, let me just select maybe one element. Say I'm selecting a section. Now when you add an element to the page, let's say I want to add another div, so I'll just drop in that div there. Now I have access to some of the most used properties, some of the most, you know, altered properties once you drop an element like a div on a page, and which is background color and the width. So I easily have access to them, and you know, of course, the tag and the custom tag there, and then the flexbox control. So and if I add, let's say, a text, I easily, you know, have access to the font size immediately, the font weight immediately, and the text color immediately, the font family. This, now you already have an advanced text property, but you have immediate access once you select it. Now in Bricks it is not so. So if I, let's say I added a heading there, of course I have to go back to select it, which in a way might be a good thing, because sometimes you want to add multiple elements on a page. In Oxygen you will have to go back and forth. This is a good thing in itself, but in some cases not so good. I believe both builders should have the opportunity to, I mean the preference to, for different people to choose which they would prefer. Okay, so I select this text, and then as the text is selected, I don't have access to anything at all, you see. So I don't really have access. So I have to go here first, and then okay, I can only change the tags and this, all this kind of stuff, and then to style it I have to go into typography. To change the color I have to open here. So you know, then once you're here you can make all your changes. But in Oxygen you have that option right here, and I think it's very intuitive to do that. One thing I saw in Oxygen that I found lacking in Bricks was the the fact that the shape divider for the section is responsive. So if I go to section and then I add a shape divider, and then I gonna give it a color white, then I go to the lower breakpoint and I decide, oh, at this breakpoint I want the color to be, say, yellow. So you see that respects the breakpoint. So at this breakpoint it's yellow, but at this breakpoint it is white. Now Bricks has a shape divider. So if I go to the section, so you have to go down to style, and then you have to go down to shape dividers, and then I'm gonna add a shape, and then I'm gonna select maybe that. I just don't like how it looks. Something wave, yep. And my color is gonna be, let's say, dark, something like that. And then I go down the breakpoint, and I decided I want it to be blue. Now coming back here, everything is still blue, so it does not respect breakpoint. The next thing that Oxygen has an upper hand is responsive custom CSS panel. Now if I go to this, let's say the section, and then let's say I don't have any styling here, and I come here and I just say background red, and then I go to the next breakpoint, and then I change that red to, let's say, blue. Now you can see that it respects the breakpoint. So, and let me add that it's much more convenient to write custom CSS for each element in their custom CSS panel. Much more easier than Bricks. Now if you go to Bricks and then you have an element, let me just add, this is supposed to be a bulk where this doesn't apply. I'm not quite sure why. Yeah, that is applied. Then now if I have this section here and I go to CSS and I write background, right? Now nothing is going to happen. So in Bricks, for this to work, you actually have to write root, and then you're going to wrap that in braces for it to work. I think it's extra layer of work, which, I mean, once you write it once, but then imagine that, you know, maybe you're doing that for a couple of elements, it gets really tiresome. Now I have red there, so I'm going to go to the say mobile landscape, and then I want to change that to blue. Come back here, it's still blue, so it doesn't respect the breakpoint. So that is one very big disadvantage. So even when you are inside the custom CSS for the element, you still need to write media query inside, which is not okay. Another thing that Oxygen has an upper hand, well, this is just one thing that just makes life a little bit easier, is the dynamic data contextual awareness. This means that if I select, let's say I have, let me delete this all the styles states. So I'm gonna just remove that. No way to remove. I can't find a way to remove that, which is not good. Anyway, I don't like this the hover styles and all. So I'm just gonna take away the class so I can. Okay, now if you want to insert a dynamic data, so I'm selecting Oxygen and I want to insert a dynamic data. Now you can see that this gives me the options that are contextual to text. So you see the post, title, content, excerpt, date, categories, you know, custom fields, comment numbers. Then under featured image, you have title, caption, and alt text. Notice you don't have image, author, display name. You know, everything has to do with text information. Now let's go out. I'm going to drop in an image, and then I want to use dynamic data to do something to that image. So I have an image here, and then I click on dynamic data. Now it's contextual. It doesn't show me all the other options. It shows me featured image, an option to choose, you know, my data from a meta custom field. Now author, it shows choose from meta custom field. User, choose from meta custom field, or PHP return value. Now if we were in, let's say, a blog post, it would show you author, picture. I mean, everything is contextual, relating to what you want to do. Now in Bricks, if I add a text, and then I want to add the dynamic data for that text. So it gives me the option for everything available, everything, and it gives me featured image. And sometimes when I see it, I wonder, how will I add a featured image to the text? Now, if I add an image and then I go to use maybe dynamic data for the image, I still see post title, post ID. So there's no contextual awareness when it comes to adding dynamic data, and I think an improvement with that will make it much more convenient to work with. So that is all for the pros of Oxygen. Now we're going to go into the pros of Bricks Builder. Now, the Flexbox control for Bricks Builder has more accessible options. So I come here and I have this. These are the Flex Child controls. Now here I can see everything. I can see the self-aligned options. I can see the order. I can see the flex growth, flex shrink, and flex basis. In Oxygen, you don't have all that. It's hidden away. So you have just this, few, and then you have to go into advanced layout to dig out the rest of them, which I don't think is okay. So let's say I go in here, and to find the order, I have to go all the way in here and the Flexbox child controls. So yeah, so the way they did it here, I think Bricks has much more options. I think it's a trade-off, because I mean, while you have a couple of more options here in Bricks, those options are missing. But basically, that's one of the pros. Now, another pro in Bricks Builder is you can easily add a child container. So I have a container here, and I want to add child containers. Like I want to add 3. I just come here and just click 1, 2, 3, and I add 3 more child containers. I want to add 2 more inside here. It's very easy. Now in Oxygen, there is no such options. If I wanted to add a div inside here, I probably need to come here and add a div. Now, good thing is we have the duplicate feature. I can click Ctrl D, but then let's assume that there wasn't, so I would have had to go back to add div, go and add div, or just duplicate from here, which, I mean, it's much faster in Bricks. Another advantage of Bricks is it has a faster UI. Let's see if I refresh everything that I'm doing right now. It's not going to take time before it comes up again, but in Oxygen, it's going to take a little bit longer. It's just going to take a little bit longer, and this, it takes a little bit longer, just a little bit longer. But then in some other people have, complained of up to 8 to 10 seconds of delay in Oxygen before it loads, even on an empty page like this. Another thing is I like about Bricks is the ability to delete. So if I have multiple elements, let's say I'm duplicating this, what I wanted to show you was that it's easy to delete all the elements from the structure panel in Bricks. But in Oxygen, you don't have that option. So you have to delete them one after the other should you need to do that. And I think it's not very convenient. In Bricks, you have one of the pros in Bricks is that if you have a rich text element, you have the option to add a dynamic data in that element. So I can drop in a post title there. I can drop in other, dynamic data inside the rich text. In Oxygen, if you have a rich text element, there's no option to add dynamic data inside read more. No option. You can't place the dynamic data inside the rich text. Yeah, much better in Bricks in that regard. Now the Bricks has a better query loop builder. Now this means that basically has a better repeater, but it's not a repeater element. So if I have a container, that means I can change any of my container to a loop builder by just clicking here. I don't need to add a spatial element. And then one of the things that stands out in Bricks query loop is the ability to to query terms and that taxonomy query, which means you can query, you can actually build a repeat categories with repeater, which is something that has been very, very lacking and asked for in Oxygen. In Oxygen, you need to have a special repeater element to use, but in Bricks you can change any element, any container to a query, to a loop, container, which is much more advanced. And of course, Bricks has a better structure panel, so it's much easier to move things around in Bricks. You know, it's far easier than it is in Oxygen. The structure panel is much more modern, it's much smoother, and then of course you can drag stuff directly into the structure panel. Please don't try that in Oxygen, something might break. Bricks support multiple instance editing. Let's say I have this, and let's just add a background color to this, and then I'm going to save this, and of course I'm going to duplicate this tab, so I have two tabs running. Oh, that was not saved. That should have saved. Let me just reload. Okay, now I have two tabs open that does the same thing. Now if I come here and add a class to, let's say this second one, I'll give it a class of, let's say, container, and then I go and edit the background. Now this should show up here. Now I'm gonna save this, and then now because that class was not available when this was open, it's not gonna show up. Okay, but let's see something. Now in Oxygen, if you do this and add a class here, and then you go back to the one that was open before you added the class and click save, you are going to overwrite whatever you did here. Now in Bricks, if I refresh this page, you see it did not overwrite that. Now that those two classes are open, I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to select that class again. I'm going to change the background to green. Let's go to the other tab. You see it has changed to green. Now in Oxygen, you can try that. Please don't try it. If you have two instances, let's say you have opened this, and then you add a class here, and you edited class here, and then you go to the next page, even if it is another page, and then it was open before you made those edits, and then you click save, it's going to overwrite everything. You're going to lose your work. But in Bricks, everything syncs. This is really powerful. In Bricks, you have the ability to switch to different page and templates inside the editor. So I can come here and just select which page I want to go to. So if I had, now it's telling me that I'm currently editing sample page. That's because that's the only page I have here. If I had other pages, let's say I went to page, I'm going to create a new page. I'm going to just call it new page, and then I'm going to publish it. Now inside here, let me save what I've done so far. I'm going to refresh, and it's going to come up very quickly, and I can go here and just choose the next page and start editing. You know, it's quite easy. I can switch between pages. But in Oxygen, there's no such, you know, you don't have that. You actually have to go to the back end, go into WordPress, you know, and then you open the page, which is not convenient. You have a searchable help inside the editor. If I have a problem here, I can just come here, and then I have access to Bricks Academy. I'll just say containers, and then it's going to show me results for container. I can quickly read something about it. If I'm not satisfied, it can link me straight to visit the docs, and then I can do that. This is very, very powerful. In Oxygen, you don't have anything like that. In Bricks, you have what I would call the instance preview reload. Let's say I have saved this. I want to preview this. It's okay. Yeah, of course, it's not gonna show because there's no height on this. But let me quickly give it a height. I'm just gonna slide this, and here I'm gonna just slide this. So I have some height there. Now, if I preview it on the front end, I come in here. If I come in here and change this this color to blue, now and save. Once I save it, the front end is going to automatically, you know, reload. So that is really powerful. In Bricks, you can type in the unit in the property value input to set the unit. You can set the unit by typing in the value. So I have let's say this container, and I go into layout. I want to give it 100 VH. I can just type the VH, and then it's gonna give me that value. But for some reason it's not. Maybe it's because it's inside a container. So let me type it inside that container, but it's supposed to work. So yeah, so that gives me, now what I'm trying to say is that you can change. So you want to use rem, so I can say 3 rem and press enter. It's going to change it to rem. So I don't need to type 3 and then come here and select rem. Now I can just, you know, type, you know, 5M, and then it can work, you know. So you have the you can type in the unit. In Bricks, the elements add element panel has contextual awareness for templating. Let's say you are inside a post template, an archive, or a single template. Maybe that should be for a blog. I'm just going to call it blog single, and I'm going to publish it, and then I'm going to edit it with Bricks. Now what is going to show up is post title, as excerpts, metadata, post content, so it gives you contextual element. Bricks has a more robust theme styles. Now Oxygen has global styles, so you could go in and go to the global styles and edit a couple of stuff. But in Bricks you have very powerful theme styles that almost all the elements, you can set a style, a global style for all the elements, so all the elements can be uniform, and then you can apply those conditions. For instance, I have this general, the condition should apply entire site. You can set different theme styles. You could create conditions for all of them. So I have this general, and then I can create another style, and then I will call this blocks, and then I'll create. Now for the blocks, I can say add condition, or this style should apply only to blocks. So why is it not opening? Add condition, and then I'm going to say post type equals to post. Now, so I have two theme styles. Then I can style all the elements for each of the theme styles that I've created, and they're going to apply based on the condition. This is powerful and more robust than what Oxygen has. Bricks has code execution control. So if you add a code block, you can determine if that code block should execute in the builder or not. So I can turn on execution, I can turn it off. But in Oxygen, you don't have that. Once you add a code block and you write your PHP or whatever you write, it's going to execute inside. So you cannot control it. It's just going to execute. And at the back end, Bricks gives you the option to determine who can execute, who has this ability to execute code inside the editor. So it gives you builder access, code execution. So you can disable it from here, and you can decide who can execute code inside the editor. Bricks has a quicker development cycle. Bricks development cycle is much more quicker than Oxygen. It's just been about a year since Bricks was developed. Since Bricks beta, the first beta was released, and Bricks has come a long way, and it's really closing in on Oxygen in terms of features. And then just a few features left for it to be at par with Oxygen. But Oxygen has been around for a lot longer time, over 3 years, and the speed of development is much slower than what we are witnessing for Bricks. So that is one more plus for Bricks. Then another thing is the Bricks is a proper theme, and as a result, it is easier to override plugin templates. So Bricks is a theme. So if you go here to theme, you're going to see Bricks in there as a theme, and Oxygen disables the themes. So of course you can still edit plugin template by using maybe code snippets in the absence of functions.php, but Bricks has more advantage as a theme, and allows you to edit plugin templates easily. Bricks has better accessibility out of the box. Now there are a lot of accessibility features in Bricks. One of the impressive one that I've seen is for a Bricks builder like this. So let's say let me copy this sample page and go to a private window. I want to test something. Now Bricks has skip navigation by default. You see, skip to main. By default, you have that built into your website. You don't even have to do anything about it. So so that is one of the main accessibility features in Bricks, and a couple of others. So if you go to the Bricks website, you will see a lot more in terms of accessibility. So Bricks has better accessibility options than Oxygen. Bricks has an open roadmap. So if you go to Bricks website, and you can see their roadmap. Okay, so you can see the roadmap. So they let you know what is in progress, what is planned, what is next. So you can see here that they're going to build a mobile menu builder, pop-up builder, mega menu, in progress. They're already working on CSS grid, conditional logic. So that's why I said custom breakpoints. Now this is why I said that the Bricks development is much faster, because these are things that took a long time in between releases for Oxygen to add, but Bricks is doing this in a few weeks, and this is really remarkable. Now Bricks has better documentation. As you know, you could see you have a lot of from the builder you can access the the help files, the documentation, and you can already see that Bricks 1.5 is not even out, and already documentation for 1.5 is already out. They have a much better system of documenting than Oxygen. Bricks also has built into their settings builder customization. If you go to settings and you go to builder, you can choose custom, and then if you save, it's going to give you an option to drop your CSS, custom CSS that you can use in changing this theme, the style of your builder. But I'm just going to take that back to normal. And then Bricks has an inbuilt SVG upload. So generally you can enable uploading SVG, which is really cool. And there are a lot of other settings here that you could take a look, and you see that Bricks has a couple of settings that Oxygen does not have. So that is all for today's comparison, and that is all. I hope I was able to cover as much as I can. I know there are a couple of things I may have missed, but I want you to tell me in the comment section, what do you find to be the most interesting thing about each of the builders, and what is the pros and cons of each builder if you have tested both. And if you have not tested it, I would encourage you to go in and try both of them. If you're an Oxygen user, go in and try Bricks. If you're a Bricks user, test out Oxygen. Let me know what you think about it. And if you found this video interesting, please hit the like button and share this video with others. I'll see you some other time. Have a great day.